Thank you. Good evening and welcome to this remote meeting of Wirral Planning Committee. My name is Stuart Kelly and I'm the chair of the committee. This meeting will be webcast and a record retained on the council website. For those people at home who are viewing the webcast, if you look above the meeting you will see a resources tab. Select this and the link to the agenda will appear on the right hand side. This will then enable you to open the agenda report as PDF documents and follow the discussion. My role is to ensure the committee runs smoothly, having regards to behaviour, procedure and ethics. To explain who are with us online: planning officers, a highway engineer and an environmental health officer. They will present the applications and provide any technical advice that may be required. The council solicitor. She will give advice to the committee on procedural and legal matters that may arise. There is also the minute taker and, of course, IT support. The elected members will consider the applications and collectively make the decisions. Voting will be by roll call. Each application will be introduced by the planning officers. Where there is a qualifying petition of 25 signatures or more, I will invite a representative of the petitioners to address the committee for 5 minutes. I will then invite the applicant or their agent to address the committee for 5 minutes. Statutory and local consultees may also address the committee. A ward councillor can also address the committee. Once representations have been made and following any questions of clarification from the committee, the speaker may not participate in any debate that follows within the committee. The application will then be open to debate and discussion by members of the planning committee, and we will then make a decision on the application. When making decisions, members may only have regard to material planning considerations. It is a matter for each member individually to balance these considerations and to decide what weight to give them. Members will also have regard to local planning policies and to the national planning policy framework and guidance. Members of the committee must not predetermine any matter which comes to the committee for decision. However, it is permissible for committee members to be predisposed towards a particular outcome with regard to an application, provided they don't make up their minds on how to vote before formally considering the application details, listening to the presentations and the full debate at committee. Members must have listened to the debate and considered all the facts before deciding whether or not to move any motion. If a member is minded to put a motion to the committee, it is good practice to first seek advice from the planning officer on the wording of a potential motion. The order of tonight's agenda may be varied. A reminder for members: keep your microphone muted and your camera off until called to speak. Ensure that the chat function is accessible to you. Indicate that you want to speak by typing your request into the chat function. Turn on your camera and microphone prior to speaking. Turn them off again when you are finished. When a vote is taken, the solicitor will call your name. We now need to just check all members are present and that their equipment is working correctly. When I call your name, could you turn on your camera and then your microphone and confirm, please? So, Councillor Bruce Berry?
Yes, I can hear and see everything. Thank you.
Okay. Chris Carubia. Sorry.
Can you see me now?
No, Bruce.
No. Should I take the background off? Oh, I know what you mean, yeah. Oh. Do you want to come back to me?
Certainly, Bruce.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll come back to you, Bruce, see whether we can see your happy smiling face.
Okay.
Chris Carubia next then, please.
Yep, hi, I'm present, thank you.
And we can now see Bruce as well.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Pat Cleary.
Yeah, Cllr Pat Cleary in attendance, thanks.
George Davies.
Present and correct.
Thanks, George. Samantha Frost.
Hi, good evening, Chair.
Kathy Hodson.
Present and correct, Chair.
Okay. Mary Jordan.
Yeah, I'm here, Chair. Can see and hear.
Good. Brian Kelly.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ian Lewis.
Yes, present and correct, Chair, thank you.
Paul Stuart.
Yeah, so far so good.
So far, so good. Stuart Whittingham.
Present and correct.
And Irene Williams.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Irene. Okay. Agenda item 1 is to approve the accuracy of the minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of July. There's no dissent in the chat box, so we will take those as read. Item 2, Members' Code of Conduct Declarations of Interest. Members of the committee are asked whether they have any personal or prejudicial interests in connection with any application on the agenda, and if so, to declare them and to state the nature of the interest. No? Okay. Agenda item 3 then is 45 to 51 St Albans Road, LISCARD. If panel officers could introduce that item for us then, please.
Can I just confirm you can see the plans, Chair?
I can see the plans, yes.
Yeah, okay. So this planning permission is sought for the change of use of this existing retail unit into a micro bar with ancillary coffee shop, together with changes to the shopfront and the installation of air conditioning units. So on the screen in front of you now, you can see the existing front elevation at the bottom and the existing floor plan. These are the existing side elevations and rear. The proposed rear elevation and side elevation showing the air conditioning unit. And that's the proposed floor area with the bifolding doors open and the bifolding doors closed. So the premises are located within LISCARD Key Town Centre, within which proposed uses such as this are permitted, subject to the criteria set out in policy SH1, which provides for not harming neighbouring uses by way of nuisance or harming the vitality and viability of the retail centre. The proposals would bring back into use a vacant unit and introduce a use that is considered to be appropriate to the Key Town Centre. Notwithstanding the location in the Key Town Centre, there are a number of residential properties within proximity of the site. Given the location within the Key Town Centre, it is to be expected that there will be town centre uses that are likely to result in lower levels of amenity than, say, within the primarily residential area or within a countryside setting. Nevertheless, there are a number of conditions that seek to limit noise disturbance for neighbouring uses. The proposed hours of operation are not considered to be unreasonable within a town centre setting. The proposals at present meet the requirements of SPD 3 in terms of separation from the main elevation of dwellings when measured along a public highway. Dominic House, however, is located northeast of the application site on the opposite side of St Albans Road. This is Dominic House here. I'm just circling it on the screen. This has recently used permitted development rights to convert the property from office accommodation to residential use in May this year. Although as not yet in use, this would place residential units within 40 metres of the application site. Although not directly opposite and having regard to the location in the town centre, Condition 6 on the late list would secure any required noise mitigation measures as a result of playing live or amplified music, which have the potential to result in noise or disturbance. The proposal is considered to be an acceptable town centre use which would not harm the vitality or viability of that centre. The proposals are relatively limited in nature given the small size of the unit, so are unlikely to generate significant volumes of noise. The hours proposed are acceptable for a town centre use. The application is recommended for approval and there are 2 petitions of objection in association with these proposals. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. So if Nicola Adcock could join us.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Nicola. Yes, you're the lead petitioner for this. You may address us for 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have a minute left. And when you finish, I'll ask members if they have any questions that they might wish to put to you. Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I've written a statement. Am I right to read it? It's only short.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, thank you for allowing me to join the meeting. I'm Nicole Adcock and I reside at 7 Cecil Road, LISCARD, with my partner and 8-year-old daughter. I represent the residents of Cecil Road. We've had great support with our petition to stop the opening of the drinking establishment to the rear of our homes with over 180 signatures, alongside the written individual objections and support from Angela Eagle. When purchasing our home, the building to the rear was a shop and has been ever since. We never thought for one moment it would change into a bar. I provided the planning department with photographs of how close the building is to the rear of our home and other residents' home. A building this close, as you can imagine, the noise from the bar will be like they are sitting in my garden with me. I also provided detailed objections regarding loss of privacy, overbearings, traffic generation, noise, smells and antisocial behaviour. These are all factors that have brought great stress to me and the residents of Cecil Road. I would just like to highlight our main concerns again to you, such as excessive noise made from the bar being so close would make our lives a nightmare. It will disturb the sleep of many children at bedtime and the hard-working shift workers who need their rest both night and day. The thought of not being able to enjoy the sanctuary of our gardens due to noise from the bar would be unbearable. I believe this will affect our mental health. Another great concern is the alley at the rear of the properties. It is already abused with littering of empty drink and drug containers and urine-filled bottles. I have contacted Angela Eagle about these concerns in the past. Unfortunately, the council budget for alley gates is no longer available. I know this antisocial behaviour will increase if a bar was to open with customers using the alley as an overspill for smoking, drug taking and going to the toilet. I also worry as St Albans Primary School's playground is only a few metres from the bar. The following statement is taken from Section 17 of the Crime Disorder Act. Local businesses and local councils must take into consideration the public interest. They have the responsibility of community safety encompassing antisocial behaviour and the misuse of drugs, alcohol and other substances. Another major concern is the use of street for car parking by customers of the bar who will then use the alley as a cut through. Our street is already overused by non-residents parking on curbs and across pathways, making it dangerous for residents old and young. As you can tell, in an ideal world, we would not want the bar to open here, but I have recently learned that LISCARD is termed as a key town area and drinking establishments are encouraged. I would also like to mention from the beginning of the lockdown, the work to convert the building has carried on regardless. This leads me to believe that our protests to prevent the bar opening have a high chance of failing. So could I suggest, if the bar stroke coffee shop is to go ahead, that certain criteria is adhered to, such as the closing of all doors and windows by 7 p.m. to prevent disturbing young children at bedtime, blocking access to the alley from St Albans Road to help minimise antisocial behaviour in the alleyway, and implementing measures to prevent customers smoking around the side of the building. That's it. Thanks for listening.
Put my microphone back on. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Let's get any members of the committee have any questions they might wish to put to the petitioner. No. No. Thank you very much for keeping within time. Thank you. I don't think we have the applicant with us, so it's open now to members. Any comments from members? Nobody coming in now. Let me just kick off then.
Councillor, before you do, could we just ask the petitioner to turn off a camera and mic?
Indeed, yes. You don't have to leave the meeting. You obviously can listen, but yeah, I think it's acknowledged by everyone that that this location is in the key town centre. I'm not sure we so much encourage bars to open in key town centres, more than it's a permitted use of a building within the key town centre, which would make it incredibly difficult for us to make an argument that it ought not to be permitted. There are issues with nearby residential. It is on the edge. Cecil Road is to the rear, and Dominic House has got permitted development rights to convert into a residential accommodation, and that does raise the issue of amenity. And these things are going to come up time and again as the permitted development rights are extended to turn offices into flats, which will tend to take place in retail centres. So we do need to have an eye on that and see whether we can mitigate any of the issues that might be raised via conditions. Petitioner referred to closing of doors and windows, and in our report we do have condition number 4, which does ask for windows and doors to remain closed between the hours of 7 at night and 9 o'clock in the morning, and whenever music is playing, obviously other than the front door for access. So we've certainly covered that in the main report. Matthew referred to what we call our addendum, sometimes called the late list, but it is an addendum, and the issue of noise is picked up as a new condition 6. So board members have seen that, which requires an assessment of the potential for noise to be submitted to and approved by the local planning authority in terms of music and the like. And if that assessment indicates that noise is likely to affect neighbouring properties, then a scheme of noise mitigation will be required. So we are adding that to the list of conditions. I'll stop there because Irene has indicated that she wishes to speak. Irene?
Hi. I was just going to agree about the alleyway. Can we do something about blocking it off? With that in the conditions?
I'll ask Matthew just to comment on whether we can condition an alley gate. Can we condition alley gates, Matthew?
No, it's outside of the site boundary. It doesn't sit within the application site, so the applicant would have no control over that.
Okay. Paul Stuart.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Just with regards to the email that came in from Nicole Adcock, I just want to thank Nicole for sending that to me, and I did ensure through you, Chair, that it was shared with the committee. Could I ask Matthew to just confirm, which he's already kind of done with regards to the gate, but the suggestions within that email of certain things that look like conditions to me rather than anything else, that it's not, are they, can we do that within planning legislation or not? I asked that question so Nicole can hear the response.
Thank you. Matthew.
I'm just opening the email, just bear with me. Yes, I've already addressed the issue of the alley gates. We wouldn't be able to do that because it's outside of the control of the applicant. We've addressed the issue of noise in terms of the conditions that are either in the report already or contained on the late list. The issue of smokers is not something that we could control as a local planning authority. I mean that would be down to the management of the property by the staff and the management and the owners. I mean we have had a consultation with the anti-social behaviour team, and they've raised no concerns about this. Especially given the fact that it is a town centre and a town centre use. That there's nothing really in that email that we either haven't already looked at and addressed, or that we could look at as part of the planning process.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Matthew.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, I think we're doing what we can from a planning point of view in terms of requiring the doors to be closed and requiring a noise survey that may very well lead to further noise mitigation measures. I mean, in terms of the alleyway, I mean, I accept entirely what officers have said, and the residents indeed are saying that the problem is a pre-existing one to a large degree. So it'd be difficult, well, it'd be impossible to try and stick something on for this particular applicants. Oh, the other point I did want to make, just for the record, for the applicants, it certainly make no difference to me that whether they had converted it or started the building works. If there were reasons for refusing it and somebody had started work on something, they do so at entirely their own risk, and it certainly wouldn't weigh in my mind that they'd gone ahead. More often than not, when we have debates about planning consent, where people have already put the building or what have you in place, it annoys committee members rather than makes them more likely to approve an application. I think when taken, when compared with our local and with national policies, I think we're doing all we can with condition number 4 and new condition number 6. Are there any other contributions from members, or we can? Ian? Can I advise members? It's difficult for me in a committee of 13 to keep a log when people raise hands, use the raise hand function, which is why I'd ask people to open the chat function. Thank you, Ian, and just type in there. At least then I can see in what order people have asked. Irene, if you could put your hand down, that would be also useful. Ian, you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you. Just 2 points, really. I'm afraid my screen and my microphone went off temporarily. Have there been any comments? I haven't seen any in the report, but have there been any comments made by any of the ward councillors on this issue?
Through you, Chair, no, we've had no representations made by ward councillors on this one.
Okay, can I just, as nothing to do with in terms of planning conditions, Ms Adcock made reference to Alley funding. It may, while she's on the line, it may help that there is a fund called Wirral Together that the 3 local councillors administer that may be able to pay for alley gates for that particular the alley at the back of the properties if she wants to contact her 3 councillors, and I'll certainly send her details if she wants me to at the end of the meeting. But I get the point that Matthew's made that it's not a planning condition.
Okay, thanks for that, Ian. Yes, yeah, I think it's well worth continuing for the residents to continue to request alley gates for the reasons that the ongoing issues that they appear to have in that alley. Certainly they work where they've been put in place that I'm aware of. Okay, nobody else in the chat function? Excellent. Well, in which case I'll move approval, if I may, incorporating new condition 6, dealing with the requirement for a noise assessment. Can I have a seconder for the committee, please? George? Unmute yourself, George, and that'll... Yeah, you'll need to turn your microphone on, George. Okay.
Sorry, they are now.
There you are.
Now. Sorry, my fault. Yeah, I'll support and second that, Stuart.
Okay, thank you. No further comments? Okay, Okay, voting. Voting will be for, against, or abstaining on the motion. The solicitor will call your name. Please turn on your camera and microphone and say who you are before voting. Members should only cast a vote if they have heard the planning officer's presentation and the debate in relation to this matter in full and have not had any technical difficulties during this item. In the event that you have had problems hearing the discussion, you should not vote and indicate not voting when called. I'll ask the solicitor to conduct the vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can you call on Councillor Bruce Berry?
Councillor Bruce Berry voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Carubia?
Councillor Carubia voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary?
Yeah, Cllr Pat Cleary voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Davies?
Councillor George Davies voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Frost?
Councillor Sam Frost voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Hodson?
Councillor Catherine Hodson voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Jordan?
Councillor Mary Jordan voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly?
Councillor Stuart Kelly voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny?
Councillor Brian Kenny voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Lewis?
Councillor Ian Lewis voting against.
Thank you. Councillor Stuart?
Councillor Paul Stewart voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Whittingham?
Councillor Stuart Whittingham voting for.
Thank you. And Councillor Williams?
Councillor Irene Williams voting for.
Thank you. That's 12 for and 1 against, Chair.
Thank you. That application has been approved with the attached conditions. We can now move to agenda item 4, which is at 152, 152A Mill Lane, LISCARD. If the planning officer could introduce this report, please.
Okay, hopefully you can all see the plan on the screen. So this application seeks permission for the change of use of the first floor of the premises into office use in association with the existing office already in place on the ground floor. The proposals would allow for the expansion of the existing business in use on the ground floor. Let me just... So you can see from those plans the existing and proposed elevations, and these are the existing and proposed ground floor plans, and these are the existing and the proposed first floor plans. The proposals are located within the primarily residential area and within a terrace of residential properties. Policy HS15 allows for non-residential uses in the primarily residential area, provided it is of an appropriate scale and would not result in a detrimental change to the character of the area or amenities of neighbouring uses. The proposed use is already in place on the ground floor. Conditions are proposed that control the hours of operation for the proposed office use, together with a scheme of noise insulation to party walls to insulate adjoining neighbouring properties from any potential noise disturbance. It is not considered that the proposals would harm the character of the area, and the conditions set out would protect residential amenity. As such, it is considered that the proposed use is acceptable in this location, and the application is recommended for approval. There is no petition in association with these proposals.
Okay, thanks for that. Who's that? Ian. Okay, I
Can I interrupt to say that Councillor Williams, could you turn your camera off, please?
Lewis. So there we go.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Lewis.
Okay. Okay, the objections are noted in section 2 of the report. I think we have the applicant or the applicant agent with us. Mr. Robinson, is this your item?
It is my item, yes.
Would you like to speak to us?
I would do, thank you. Just as a couple of points. First of all, apologise.
You have 5 minutes.
Okay, first of all, I apologise because we've undertaken some work. So I've never done anything of this sort before. So we currently rent a property at Aldershot School, and due to expansion of the business, we're moving to Mill Lane. I'd like to bring to your attention, I did consult the next door neighbour who's made most of the issues, and he petitioned the local area before even knowing about what was due to be done with the offices. We're a professional outfit of brokerage with no machinery, and we supply equipment through a brokerage all over Europe. And we've been in business 3.5 years, and in our current place at Cllr Road, I've never had any complaints, raised against our business. I'd like to bring to the attention, and I think it's been a bit of an error. I did contact Gemma Scottish regards to the issues raised by the next door neighbour, and mentioned that my builder had mentioned to the next door neighbour that the noise nuisance would be worse if it was left as a flat or converted to a residential property. Our hours of work are actually 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, Monday to Friday. No weekends, no bank holidays. It has gone down as 9 to 5. We only operate a skeleton staff, currently between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And that's 2 with a maximum of 3 members of staff in the downstairs office, which is currently an office anyway. My only other concern is this requirement for noise insulation. The walls currently are 3 brick thick, and obviously have been offices downstairs, and we're originally an office upstairs as well. The adjoining property that has made most of the complaints is separated by a hallway from the main office. The upstairs office will only be occupied by our accounts office, so there is no noise. There's very few phone calls taken. We do not have any passing trade entering the office, and we don't have any customers coming to the office. We are purely a remote business, so we supply forklifts, scissor lifts, etc. across the UK and across Europe through third-party suppliers. We have no intention to ever do any more sort of business from that premises, and it will be a purely professional business. And that's really all I've got to say. But the key issue for me is this start time of 9 o'clock. As I say, the skeleton staff has to be in from 8 o'clock to really check with our suppliers that everything's been delivered on time, and it's a key part of our business. That, like I say, I can counter that with not working Saturdays, Sundays, or any bank holidays. And you would see that in the details provided that we have made some redundancies, so at the moment the full level of staff is 3 full-time, including myself, and 2 part-time. And I do apologise for commencing the work. I listened to you before on the previous detail, but it's the first time I've done anything like this, so I do apologise about that. But it has been a light modernisation really, other than taking one adjoining partition wall down and some old partition walls that were down in the present office. And that's basically it really. And I do note that you need a detail of waste disposal. We're a paperless company, so we don't actually generate any paper, and the only other waste would be general waste from people bringing in the dinners, etc. So I will contact the council and local, to discuss litter collection. I think that covers everything, I hope.
Okay, thanks for that. I'll just ask if any members have any questions they wish to ask you at this stage. I think for the members. Okay, thanks for that. If you could turn your camera off, then I'll just ask the planner.
Sorry, Chair. I did indicate twice that I had a question.
Okay, Paul Stuart, yes.
Okay, thanks. Could the applicant, is it Mr. Robinson, could you, when was the last time the flat upstairs had a tenant?
Oh, it was a long time ago. It was an accountancy office down below, and the gentleman I bought the property off owned both premises. He originally owned the adjoining house as well, which was as part of his accountancy firm. He sold the accountancy firm, I think, some 12 years ago, and Carroll Accountancy were renting the property from him, and he sold the premises, both ground floor and upstairs, to me in July last year. But I don't think it had been tenanted for a year or two previous to that. It was his auntie who was the tenant originally.
Okay, thank you.
Brian Kenny.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I do note from the papers that Environmental Health said they had no objection, but they were requesting a condition regarding the need for sound insulation to the party wall and further details relating to the noise emitted from the air conditioning units. Can I just clarify that the request from Environmental Health has actually been accepted and is now part of the conditions?
Well, I'm not sure that's a question, first of all, but it forms part of the recommendation that we have in front of us, Brian. I'll bring Matthew, and if necessary, Environmental Health in to make a comment.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
If we can. Is that okay? Okay, I think that's all the questions I've seen. I apologise, Paul. I didn't notice yours to start with. Mr. Robinson, thank you very much for your presentation. First of all, then, before we get on to the sound, this condition 3 is the business of the opening hours. Matthew, do we need to regularise that? Mr. Robertson, if you could turn your camera.
Oh, sorry, I do apologise.
Sorry, Chair, what was the question? I couldn't hear it. There's a buzzing in my ears.
Right. Okay. If everybody that's online turns the microphone off, then we won't get background noise. Okay, thank you. The question is just about condition 3. It seems to be indicated that that they wish to work from 8 to 5 Monday to Friday, as opposed to 9 to 5 Monday to Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I've just checked the application form, and the application form was submitted for hours 9 to 5, which is the hours that we've put on the condition. But it's in the gift of the committee, I guess, to alter that condition if you think it's reasonable.
Okay. Well,
I don't think we would have any particularly strong objections from the local planning authority point of view about an 8 o'clock start. It's not unusual for an office.
Yeah. And to Brian's point about the sound installation, that remains our view.
Yes, I mean these are things that were picked up from the environmental health officer. My understanding is that there may well have been an objection to the use of the first floor for offices without those conditions going on. I mean it is a terrace and either side is in residential use, so I think it is important that there is some sort of noise insulation, because regardless of what the applicant has said, there is still the potential, albeit small, for some noise disturbance passing through the walls from office use.
Okay. Chris Carubia.
Thank you, Chair. A quick question for me. I'm trying to figure out, I'm just reading the stuff, I'm not sure how many extra staff are going in there now. It says maximum it's going to be 10 staff. How many are existing to how many more staff is going to be added? With relation to parking, really, because what implication does that have on local parking area? Because looking at the map, it doesn't look like there's anywhere there's no off-road parking, or I'm wondering what the effect of that will be.
Through you, Chair, there's been an assessment by the engineers, the highways engineers, around the potential for the increase of on-street parking, and that is picked up in the report. There's no objection from the engineers for the reasons that are outlined in your papers. And into this is although there's an office on the ground floor at the moment. My understanding that this is a different business that's coming in here, who will operate the ground floor and the first floor. So the 10 staff that are mentioned in the papers are the 10 staff that will be coming in from with this new company.
Okay. Okay. Any further comments from members on any of those issues? I think we probably do. Stuart, yes.
Yeah, thanks. A couple of things from me. I must admit, I think the parking is a bit of a concern, especially if I recall correctly, there's a number of shops on that row, and what we wouldn't want to see is all the shopping spaces being taken up by people who work in the office.
Can I just clarify that? Sorry, Chair.
Yeah.
They're in residential use. There's no shops.
Oh, right. Okay. That's fair enough.
I think it's fair to say they were, Matthew? It was a terrace of shops at one point.
That's right, but it's all in residential use now.
Okay. So thanks for clarifying that. Personally, I don't see the use being in conflict with it being mainly residential area. and I think we should welcome jobs and local business growing. I would argue that should we decide to pass this application, that there shouldn't be any time restrictions as to when the office can be used, because obviously we want our businesses to grow, and to be fair, it's a purely paperless office environment, and I can't see that environment causing any disturbance issues for any neighbours.
Okay, I think, yeah. I mean, I think we would normally condition opening hours in a primarily residential area. I think. I think my preference is for the conditions to be to be the one that makes sense. As a result, those are saying 9 o'clock is they're definitely going to get open at 8, and we doubt we'll be able to survive an appeal of the condition. I mean, we've been told 8 till 5 Monday to Friday. I would suggest that those are the hours that are inserted into condition 3. So where it currently says 9 to 5 Monday to Saturday, I think we should say 8 to 5 Monday to Friday, as that was made clear to us. And then in terms of what I've just seen, the applicant wishes to come back in. Unfortunately, that's not our usual procedure. It's open to the committee now, and Mr. Robinson, you will have heard the planning officer's response to the question on parking. There's been no objection from highways. I'm content with the sound installation also. To be it's been picked up by environmental health and planning officers, and I don't think, and it forms part of the concerns of the objectors, the potential for noise, and I think it'd be wrong of us not to pick that up. Bruce Berry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick up on the point that Matthew made, excuse me, regarding the amount of people that would be working in the office environment. It was my understanding from reading the documentation that there were originally going to be 10 people employed in that office, and that's now reduced to 4 or 5 people. And I don't know, maybe the applicant wanted to come in and clarify that point. Could that be clarified by either you, the chair, or possibly by Matthew? Thank you.
Through you, Chair. The application form says the proposed number of employees is 10. So that's what we've worked on the basis of. If there's 4 or 5 in there, then that's clearly less than the 10 that are detailed in the application form, and it would be better because there'd be fewer people working in there. But on the basis of 10 people working in there, we were still recommending approval.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So that Paul Stewart.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose my comments are sort of double-edged. I mean, it's a shame that we've got a residential unit that's being converted perversely into the other way, especially when we need housing. So I don't know whether that's something that we need to look at as an authority with regards to that going forward. But that I'm just disappointed that we're in this situation that we're actually converting residential into units. My other comments, though, that aside, I'm uncomfortable with the idea of restricting the days of the week that they can work. I'm uncomfortable. I mean, they put the times in themselves, 9 till 5, and granted, that's now being said that it's 8 till 5. I'm just uncomfortable that we're going to restrict any potential business, that we're going to say, yeah, you can come and do business, but only between these hours. We're not talking about a licensed premises or things like that, it's predominantly going to be an office situation. So I'm a bit uncomfortable with restricting the times, but certainly the days as well. And there's been a few comments that has been made that I think, including yourself, Chair, that you suggested that maybe asking the applicant to come back on. And I think, given comments that have been made, I think it'd only be fair if you would oblige, Chair, to allow him to come back to clarify any points, because I noticed that he has asked to do that as well. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, let me take Pat Cleary first then.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just on that point about the opening hours, I think it is important, I would say, that we do condition the opening hours. As you said yourself, we would normally condition opening hours in this kind of an application in a residential area. I'm comfortable with what the applicant requested and what you yourself supported, Chair, 8 till 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. And I think that to me is a reasonable condition to now apply. Thank you.
Okay. I've just considered Paul Stewart's suggestion that the applicant be allowed to speak again. I'm not going to allow it. We obviously do need a debate within committee about speaking rights, but it's a new venture, if you like, to allow the applicant to speak in the absence of the objectors being allowed to speak. And we need to bottom out some of these anomalies before we start talking about having conversations with applicants and objectors as part of our debate. So hopefully, Paul, you'll allow me to leave that one there. I think the highway, in terms of the highways officer and the plan officer have made comment. Okay.
Yeah, if I can just come in as the solicitor, I agree with that comment from yourself. I think it's inappropriate at this stage. Thank you.
Yeah, we can look at speaking out in the round, but rather not make it up as we go along on one application. Okay, there seems to be a potential difference of opinion within the committee on potential amendments to on a potential amendment to condition 3. I think what I'm going to do is to move an amendment to condition 3 first, see where we end up with on a condition 3, and then we'll consider the rest of the we'll consider motions to refuse or to approve after that. So I will move then an amendment to condition 3. So that it would read: the premises shall not be open for business outside of the hours of 8 and 5 o'clock Monday to Friday. Is there a seconder for that?
I'm happy to second that, Chair. Councillor Pat Cleary.
Okay, thanks, Pat.
Chair, can I come in? I think that should be moved as part of a movement to approve. It should be moved subject to that amendment, rather than us voting separately on moving that condition on that condition.
Well, I don't think I agree with that, because that would force some members to vote against it who actually
right, okay.
Vote for
it. If that's your reason, then I'm happy with that, Chair. Okay,
narrow area, and it's a narrow area where where members have expressed concern, and I'd like to test the view of the committee on condition.
Chair, if it's helpful, having listened to the debate, I would support that motion. If it's helpful.
Well, we'll vote on the amendment to the condition then first. Okay, let me just read it. So voting will be for, against or abstaining on the amendment to the condition. The solicitor will call your name. Please turn on your camera and microphone and say who you are before voting. Members should only cast a vote if they've heard the plan officer's presentation and the debate in relation to the matter in full and have not had any technical difficulties during the item. In the event that you have had problems hearing the discussion, you should not vote and indicate not voting when called. So I'll ask the solicitor to conduct the vote on the amendment to the condition.
Right. Councillor Berry?
Councillor Bruce Berry voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Carubia?
Councillor Chris Carubia voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary?
Councillor Cleary voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Davies?
Councillor George Davies voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Hodson?
Councillor Catherine Hodson voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Jordan?
Councillor Mary Jordan voting for.
Councillor Kelly?
Councillor Stuart Kelly voting for.
Sorry, I've missed Councillor Frost. Councillor Frost?
Hi, Councillor Sam Frost voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny?
Councillor Brian Kenny voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Lewis?
Cllr Ian Lewis voting for.
Councillor Stuart?
Councillor Paul Stuart voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Whittingham?
Councillor Stuart Whittingham vote for.
Thank you. And Councillor Williams?
Councillor Irene Williams voting for.
Thank you. So that amendment to the condition is carried.
Thank you very much. Sort of misread the committee there. Okay, so I'll move approval of what we have in front of us. Is there a seconder for that?
I'm happy to second that, Chair. Councillor Pat Cleary.
Thanks, Pat. Any further comments? Are we happy to vote? Let me tell you again. Okay, so voting will be for or against or abstaining on the motion to approve. The solicitor will call your name. Please turn on your camera and mic and say who you are before voting. Members should only cast a vote if they've heard the planning officer's presentation and the debate in relation to the matter in full and have not had any technical difficulties during this item. In the event that you have had problems hearing the discussion, you should not vote and indicate not voting when called. And
Thank you. Councillor Berry?
Councillor Bruce Berry voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Carubia?
Councillor Chris Carubia voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Davies?
Councillor George Davies voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Frost?
Councillor Sam Frost voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary?
Councillor Cleary voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Hodson?
Councillor Catherine Hodson voting for.
Councillor Jordan?
Councillor Mary Jordan voting for.
Councillor Kelly?
Councillor Stuart Kelly voting for.
Councillor Kenny?
Councillor Brian Kenny voting for.
Councillor Lewis?
Cllr Ian Lewis voting for. Thank you.
Councillor Stuart?
Councillor Paul Stuart voting for.
Councillor Whittingham?
Councillor Stuart Whittingham voting for.
And Councillor Williams?
Councillor Irene Williams voting for.
Thank you. That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. That item has been approved. Move on now to item number 5, which is 52 to 54 Green Hayes Road, LISCARD. If you can ask the officers to introduce the application, please. We can see the plan, Matthew, but we can't hear you.
It would be helpful if I unmuted then. Okay, so this is an application that seeks planning permission for the demolition of existing buildings and for the erection of a part 2-storey, part 3-storey building that will house a 53-unit independent living retirement residential scheme, together with associated car parking and hard and soft landscaping. It is a resubmission of an application that was refused by Planning Committee on the 28th of April this year. A single reason that related to the loss of trees across the site and the lack of any replacement planting to compensate for the loss of 13 protected trees was part of that previous proposal. No other reason was given for the refusal. This submission has taken away the concerns raised by local residents and the committee in respect of the loss of trees, and the new planting proposals submitted with this application ensure that there will be no loss of trees across the site. 1-for-1 replacement is now secured, and more importantly, the new landscaping proposals introduce much higher quality trees which will provide for enhanced amenity and biodiversity. "32 new trees will be planted across the site, ensuring 1-for-1 replacement and also providing for the continued long-term health of those existing trees within the site that are to be retained." The proposed planting plan is showing on your screen now. The new landscaping proposals address the earlier reason for refusal. The scheme provides for 100% affordable housing with a mix of 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. These will provide for modern homes that support and promote the health and well-being of older people seeking to maintain or regain their independence whilst ensuring care and support is available as required. It forms part of the wider community, ensuring that residents will not be isolated or segregated. The proposals represent the redevelopment of a prominent and sustainable location with the provision of high-quality extra care facilities at 100% affordable provision that meets an identified local housing need. The application addresses the recent single reason for refusal about loss of trees with the implementation of a comprehensive landscaping and planting strategy that will see the planting of new high-quality trees across the site, retain the belt of trees along the sensitive green-haze rose frontage, and provide biodiversity opportunities as a result of the new green infrastructure. The application is recommended for approval, and there is no petition of objection in association with these proposals. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we don't have objectors or the Ward Council. Mr. Cove, we have the applicants. Mr. Cove, would you like to address us? Would you like to address us, sir?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. On behalf of the joint applicants, the NHS and Amwell Partnerships, I'd like to support the office's recommendation to approve this resubmitted planning application. The NHS and Amwell have been keen to ensure that the new application responds positively to the previous reason for refusal and the related concerns expressed by some members of the Planning Committee and by Councillors Sport on behalf of local residents in April. The previous scheme resulted in an overall net loss of 13 trees across the site. Whilst Wirral's tree officer and planning officers were satisfied that the removal of a number of poor quality or dying trees and the planting of higher quality trees was justified on the grounds of good management, the overall net loss of trees was not considered to be acceptable. Councillor Spore's local ward member and some members of the committee. The single reason for refusal related to the net loss of trees, and this is consistent with the members' debate at that committee. Following the refusal of the previous planning application, Amwell held a meeting with their landscape architect to see if 1-for-1 tree replacement could be achieved on the site. Being mindful that the resultant scheme would still need to allow for the long-term health of both the trees that is to be retained and the new trees to be planted. The landscape architects confirmed that this was possible. And so this resubmitted application is accompanied by revision D of the landscape plan, which demonstrates the extensive tree cover that will be achieved, representing a significant benefit to both the site and the wider area. The Wirral Tree Strategy encourages developers to use the Council's pre-application service to obtain expert advice on the matters that will need to be addressed. Since the refusal of the previous planning application, the applicant has continued dialogue with officers, and the one-for-one tree replacement strategy is an approach that has been endorsed through this process. And so we hope that this increased level of tree planting now responds appropriately to the concerns raised by members of the Planning Committee last time around. In advance of the planning application being resubmitted, we also contacted Cllr SPOR and provided her with a copy of the revised landscape plan. Through discussion, it was agreed that Cllr SPOR would then share the new landscape plan with local residents. It's noted that just 5 residents have written letters of objection this time around, and a petition has also not been submitted as it was last time. Whilst it's acknowledged that all the concerns of all residents could not be addressed, we do see this as an extremely positive outcome that infers the majority of the local community are in fact in support of what is proposed. In consideration of the overall planning balance, the scheme will deliver a number of significant material benefits, which I'll run through now. Firstly, it will see the remediation and redevelopment of a vacant site in a prominent and sustainable location. The scheme is also to provide 100% affordable housing and a high-quality extra care facility for the over 55s, and this meets specific and evidenced local housing market needs in the Wallasey sub-area. Wirral Council's 2020 Strategic Housing Market Assessment confirms there is an annual need of 139 new affordable units in every year up to 2035 in Wallasey alone. The assessment also confirms that 1 in 5 residents in the Wallasey sub-area require care or support to remain in their current home, which further confirms the acute need for this type of accommodation in this specific location. This 100% affordable over 55 scheme therefore ticks both of these important boxes for local Wirral residents. Other benefits the scheme will deliver is the creation of both direct and indirect jobs during the construction phase, and when the building is operational, generating approximately £7 million worth of investment in the local economy through additional expenditure and the local supply chains. The sale of the site will generate much needed revenue for the NHS. And finally, the enhanced landscaping strategy and additional tree planting now proposed will not only provide long-term benefits associated with comprehensive tree cover, but also opportunities for new wildlife and biodiversity as a result of this new high-quality green infrastructure. Our view is that these numerous benefits significantly outweigh any harm arising from the development, given that a one-for-one tree replacement strategy is now achieved. This must also be considered in the context of the emerging local plan, and the preferred option being put forward by the Council is for urban regeneration with no greenbelt release. This scheme fulfils both of these important objectives and will therefore help the Council to better defend the greenbelt in Wirral through the remainder of the local plan process, as well as meet known housing needs for local people. The NHS and Amble Partnerships as joint applicants therefore politely ask members of the Planning Committee to support the office's recommendation and approve this resubmitted application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cove. Can I ask if any members of the committee have any questions at this point? Pat Cleary.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Mr. Cove, for your presentation. I just had a question about condition 17, which conditions secure cycle storage on the site. I just wonder, could you give a bit more detail about how you intend to fulfill that condition in terms of its location on the site and the capacity of the storage facility?
I believe this is integrated into the fabric of the building. So there is an internal area. I'm afraid off the top of my head I don't know the exact number of cycle spaces, but it's something I could certainly find out quickly for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that.
I think what I will say is obviously the Highways Officer has reviewed the scheme against all of the relevant standards, including car parking and cycle standards, and has clearly raised no objection to what is proposed. I don't know if that assists.
Okay. Any further questions? No. Mr. Cove, thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it is open to members. Obviously, we have had, as has been suggested, we have had the application before us. So some of the issues that are raised by the objectors, the new objectors, if you like, in paragraph section 2, were in fact considered by the committee previously. The application was refused previously on the grounds, as Mr. Cove has indicated, of like-for-like tree replacement. I think it's my view that the resubmitted application has overcome our reason for refusal. But I'll open it to committee, see if members have any further views. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Can I unusually thank the applicant, Mr. Cove, and the people he's working for listening to the concerns of the committee last time and coming up with a like-for-like replacement of the trees. I think it sends an important message to other applicants that we will take a more robust line on the like-for-like planting of trees. And perhaps it also sends a message to our own tree officers that we would fully support a more robust line, because I think we were right to hold out last time, and I think this application meets the concerns that many of us had at the last application. And I'll be happy to support this one.
So, Ian, any further comments? No. Yeah, I entirely agree with Ian. It's great when applicants listen to what ward councillors and committee have said and address the concerns, and I'm happy to move approval of that and of this application. Just refer members. Thank you, Stuart. I was just going to refer members to again the addendum. There is an amendment to condition 2. The amendment just refers to the correct site plans, as far as I'm aware, and an amendment to condition 7, which I think, Matthew, is that also to reference the correct site plans?
It's condition 7 is to reference the correct landscaping plan. Yeah.
Right. Well, we'd be rather remiss if we haven't gone through all this, fail to ask them to build it or to do the planting as per the correct plans. So I've moved approval and Stuart Whittingham has seconded that. No other comments, so if members could prepare to vote. Voting will be for, against or abstaining on the motion to approve. The solicitor will call your name. Please turn on your camera and microphone and say who you are before voting. Members should only cast a vote if they have heard the planning officer's presentation and the debate in relation to this matter in full and have not had any technical difficulties during this item. In the event that you have had problems hearing the discussion, you should not vote and indicate not voting when called. We can hand over to the solicitor for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bruce Berry.
Councillor Bruce Berry voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Carubia.
Councillor Chris Carubia voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary.
Councillor Cleary voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Davies.
Councillor George Davies voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Hodson.
Councillor Catherine Hodson voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Jordan.
Councillor Mary Jordan voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Councillor Stuart Kelly voting for.
Thank you. So, Councillor Frost.
Councillor Frost voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Councillor Brian Kenny voting for.
Councillor Lewis.
Councillor Ian Lewis voting for.
Councillor Stuart.
Councillor Paul Stuart voting for.
Councillor Whittingham.
Yes, Councillor Stuart Whittingham voting for.
Councillor Williams.
Councillor Irene Williams voting for.
Thank you, Chair. That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. That's unanimous. That application has been approved. That concludes our meeting. Thank everybody for their contribution.